Next, we have Chad Bishop.
My name is Chad Bishop. I live at 7405 South Valencia Drive here in Sioux Falls. Actually, I had prepared this, but I do have a change of heart. I think I want to explain something else. And so I haven't done this for a while, shoot from the hip. But so obviously I have a different point of view than many. And so I'd like to explain context behind that. When I was about 11 is before I moved downstairs, so that's how I recall it. I got up from the dinner table one evening and was trying to beat my mom to the computer. I was intent upon playing a new version of Castle Wolfenstein, and she was intent upon working on a grant letter for a handicapped riding association facility she wanted to open in Aberdeen. And so I beat her, but on the way I fell into the wall and just lost my balance. And so got up, brushed it off, complained of tingling in my feet to my parents that night. And then the next morning I woke up unable to walk and crawled to the bathroom, crying out for my mom and dad. Didn't understand what was going on. Dr. Hart in Aberdeen, my dad carried me into the emergency room, and Dr. Hart in Aberdeen at that time, it took a few days to get back to us, but explained to us what I had was called French polio and that I would recover. But my mother, by virtue that her little sister had actually been confined to a wheelchair because of polio and was a paraplegic, it was cause for great concern. Now, I recovered fully, but in 1997, my elderly uncle, my dad's oldest brother, he ended up coming ill with what was called Guillain-Barré at the time. He spent 9 months at the VA in Sturgis on his back, 3 of them on a respirator, fully conscious. And so these two things, French polio is also known as Guillain-Barré. The genetic link is unknown, but we had been asked to participate in a study at the time. Ultimately, it wasn't funded to determine what was the potential link. So it went on. I was working as an engineer with my wife for Motorola in Fort Worth, Texas. And the plant there had a medical facility, and they had flu clinics on offer. So you could go down and sign up, and I did. We didn't have any reason not to do that at the time. And then filled out the paperwork and go and sit down, and I'm actually having my shoulder swabbed. And all of a sudden the nurse cries out, "Whoa, where's Chad Bishop?" And I raise my hand, and she says, "Is this your paperwork?" And she comes over, and I had checked off one of the 4 questions. If you get a flu shot today, one of the questions that's there is, have you ever suffered from Guillain-Barré or from French polio? And I was quietly taken aside and explained that they would not administer a flu shot to me. At that time in Fort Worth, the Harris hospital system, I met with an infectious disease immunologist, and they explained to me the history behind the swine flu vaccine development and the outbreak of Guillain-Barré that occurred during that time. So for my family, we began this discussion when the pandemic set in with both physicians and with politicians, because I feared exactly what is happening now was going to happen. Mandates across the board for vaccines developed too hastily. And when the J&J was paused for the purpose of acknowledging that Guillain-Barré outbreaks had occurred, that it kind of vindicated our position. We'd basically, for our family, we had serial converted to become antibody positive prior to the vaccine being made available to either my wife, I, or any of my kids being the ones I'm most concerned about. Knowing what it would do, a relapse could do to me and to my family, we were trying to took the precautionary principle. And by virtue that we were recovered, and we understood that if we had recovered, we had conferred upon us by the infection S-type antibodies, N-type antibodies, the 24 or 27 others, IgA antibodies in the mucosal layer of our lungs, full B-cell responses and T-cell responses. And so that level of immunity, it's a spectrum of immunity, I acknowledge that, is the most robust that we've seen. It's been the most robust against the original alpha and beta. The Israeli data has borne out that it's been the most robust in response to the Delta, and now we're seeing it with all the breakthrough cases and the fully vaccinated and fully boosted in Omicron. And so I speak on my behalf and on my family's behalf, but I also speak for the others who have real concerns at the rate at which these things are developed. And to cast them aside and to basically do as our president has done, and the president or the prime minister of Canada, and to basically other them as irresponsible is absolutely a disgrace. And so when I come to you and I ask for you to change policies and to acknowledge the robust and wide and, excuse me, thank you.
Thank you, Chad.